Good morning, everybody. It's been a while. Ended up getting sick, and then our dog died, so was mourning and, recovering from being ill. This morning, we're going to be chopping out. We're going to get the blood flowing again after almost a month of not practicing. I know. But, when your stomach's hurting, you don't really feel like drumming. At least I don't. Now, we are going to be doing a practice stream, and in this practice stream, I'm going to be sharing what I'm doing to try and improve, but this morning is specifically just going to focus on, getting the hands going. In all of these prior live streams, there's over 350 of them, there's timestamps in the description so you can see what I was talking about or what I was practicing, so you can see how I'm actively trying to improve things. As somebody who's been drumming since 1998 and who's been teaching since 2003, who has a bachelor's, master's, PhD in music education, so I've got a wide range of performing and teaching experience. So people often ask me some questions in the chat, like, hey, how do I get better at blah? And I will often take these questions and put them into an edited version that I will put in this drumming tips playlist. There's well over a dozen hours of free drumming tips in here. And if the title of one of these videos doesn't sound interesting, there's often many different tips inside of here. So if you click on it, you can actually expand and see in the description like what the other topics are that I talk about in there. In all of these practice streams, I'm using some play-alongs and whatnot. And the play-alongs are found here. If you're on the vertical, it's jaredoleary.com/drum. But otherwise, you just go to the link that's at the top of each one of the horizontal videos on my YouTube channel. We've got 62 chop exercises. We've got over 1,000 grid variations. I'd highly recommend focusing on rudiment on one rather than doing some of the wacky stuff. But, if you want to work on the wacky stuff, there's plenty of them in there. We've got a bunch of limb independence exercises, over 150 timing exercises that you can work on for 8th note, triplets, 16th note, as well as your transitions between different rhythms. We've got over 460 marching bass exercises, some cadences that I added a couple of weeks ago, over 360 technique exercises. So if you're like, I want to work on my, accent taps, check out the accent tap playlist. If you want to work on your 3s and 4 strokes, check out that playlist, etc. And then we've got a bunch of drumming tips, like all of the tips right here, as well as the live streams, and then some scripted lessons, etc. When there's another Fortnite stream, I'm not planning on doing another Fortnite stream. I just haven't really been enjoying the game lately. But today we're going to be playing Portal. So we're going to be playing Portal 1, and then once I beat that, we'll play Portal 2. So you can find all of the, if you want the Fortnite stuff, you can find all of the previous highlight reels here, as well as all the other games that we have played, all the full streams, and then you can see some of the games that I'm planning on doing. Like after I beat Portal, I'm going to play through Firewatch, and then after that, I'm thinking of going through Ori, and after that, I'm thinking of doing the entire Uncharted series, etc. So there's a bunch of different games in there that we'll be doing. Now, I'm going to warm up, but before we do that, I got to get motivated with Shia LaBeouf. So Shia is going to help me out. Let me hide him for copyright reasons. Shia, help me. I need to get motivated here. Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! So motivated. Some people dream success. Well, you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. Yeah. Shia LaBeouf, the great motivator. I am so ready to drum now. Can we do scratch? Actually, if you go to /scratch on my website instead of /drum, it takes you to, can't find it, here. And this is where we got a bunch of different videos on how to do scratch. And then I'm going to add in some more projects soon in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that in the future. Okay, we're going to get the blood going. Because I haven't drummed in a couple of, a few weeks. We're going to play through a chop exercise, and we'll just kind of, get the hands, remembering, here's how you drum again. Let's do Let's do Chug. So inside of this particular playlist, there are 28 different Chug variations in here. And a lot of like good ones to work on. We're going to go with the classic. Flam, accents, and rolls. So this is just a very simple... Whoa. we don't need it at 144p for the quality. There we go. Looking much better. Okay, volume up. In every single one of these play-alongs, you can go to the timestamps. This one goes as slow as 20 beats a minute, or as fast as 160. So you can pick at the speed that works best for ya. Let's turn up the volume so we can hear the count off. Notice how there's no grace note after the roll. So you're not like ending with a flam or anything like that, okay? So it starts with the flams, but after every roll, it always just ends with an accent. So don't try and put in a grace note in there. That's not how you should do that. Good luck getting that in there, especially as you play it faster. Feels like it's quiet. Why are you quiet? That's why. There we go. Now, if you were practicing this, go one click faster instead of like jumping by like 5s or 10s. For example, now it's at 91, so then it counts you off and you play it one click faster. Let's go to 100 now. Click. And boop. Since we're just warming up after a month of not drumming, we'll see how fast we can play today. Cool. 110. Click. That's the version with tag. I'll show you that after this. It's fun. It's a good one. They would play it on the last rep. So Blue Devils play this exercise. Several different Chug variations. This is just one of like many different variations that you can do. Can you use Bluebird? What is Bluebird? I don't know. Click. Can you play Bluebird? Still don't know what Bluebird is. Sure. Have fun. Enjoy. 140. Let's try that again. That doesn't sound great. Twitter? Blue Sky? We're just gonna name apps. Instagram, sure. You You can use Snapchat. Okay, let's try the 160. Is it gonna go good? I don't know. What's my favorite instrument? I march snare, so that was my favorite. Playing traditional grip is overrated, though. The reason why I like snare is because everyone and their grandma can hear when it sounds bad when you're just slightly off from each other. So as a perfectionist, like, it really made it so that I had to focus on playing perfectly with everybody else, all 7 other people I was drumming with on the snare lines and whatnot. So I personally really like snare, but I don't like traditional grip. So I exclusively play match grip now. Traditional grip is overrated, but snare is my favorite. Drum kit now is my second favorite. I'm really enjoying playing through drum kit, but I also did like every band and orchestra instrument because for my undergrad in music education, I had to teach every single band and orchestra instrument. So I had to like study them all. And I did not like playing wind and brass and string, etc. So I have played all these different instruments. I just don't like them. Same thing with like concert percussion. I had to learn marimba, like I own a marimba. And like 4 mallets is like beautiful and it's really interesting and like Steven's technique and whatnot's cool. I just don't like it. I would much rather practice snare than marimba any day. But to each their own. There's nothing against like marimba. Like it's cool. It's a beautiful instrument. Love it. There's so many cool pieces that I've played. But would I rather practice marimba or practice on a pad or on drum kit? I'd rather practice these any day. But I've put like very little time in drum kit. Let's try it. Whoo-wee! That's brisk. All right. I definitely need to stretch and massage, so let's do that. Do you have a favorite instrument, though? What's your favorite instrument? I'm going to take my sticks. I'm going to pull them in like this. Pull them in like this. Push it out like that. Ooh-wee. It feels good. One of my favorite things to do back when I used to teach elementary band is I'd play on drum kit with my feet. So I'd play like a Bayonne pattern, like boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, while like playing trumpet with my right hand. So you'd hold it, play through it. Like so the like wind and brass could like model after me. So I'd play something, they repeat back to me. And then I'd play with my left hand on like snare and on the drums and stuff. That was so much fun to do. Playing 2 instruments at once. It was goofy. All right, now I'm going to stretch the underside of the form. You could do it like this. If you want a deeper stretch, do 2 fingers and then 2 fingers. You could also do this on your pad like this, or you could play it like, you could stretch it like this. The lower you go, the deeper the stretch. Don't put all your weight into it. I'm going to do this one, so give me a moment to enjoy this stretch. Oh, yeah. Stretchy, stretchy. Ooh, even on days when you don't, like practice, it's important to do the stretch and massage routine. Helps keep your hands healthy. I'm going to stretch the top side of the forearms now. Could do it like this. 2 fingers at a time, 2 fingers, or all 4. You could do it here, you could do it on here. If you do this on the wall, the higher you go, the deeper the stretch. Again, don't put all your weight into it, so let me do that. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to stretch finger to finger. Always important to stretch. Agreed. Agreed. Do I have a favorite music band? Oh, your favorite instrument is harmonica. Ooh, I have not played harmonica. Tyler, hello. Welcome on Instagram. It's been a while. That's my fault. How was finals? Oh, great, Leary. I had a middle school student that I taught when I was teaching computer science. He wasn't always the most like present person, I guess I could say. One day he's like, oh, O'Reilly. He's like, that's you. I was like, okay, except that's not my name. Computer science teaching was fun. It was weird going into teaching computer science when I was finishing a doctorate in music education. When I was applying for the position, the people who were interviewing me are like, "What? Really? All of your degrees are in music ed? What?" We're now going to do thumb on top, fingers underneath. There's a great multicam on YouTube. Ooh, yeah. I'll check that out. I'm glad to hear that finals was awesome. I want to... Edwards, hey! Glad to hear that as well. They hit the Pope? What do you mean? Why did they hit him? Did he pee on the carpet or something? Was he being a bad Pope? This is one of Imperial Dynasty. Nice. Nice. Your favorite is a xylophone. Interesting. So if you play like a nice ragtime on a xylophone, that can be a fun instrument. I had a college student once who like really liked studying ragtimes and stuff. What's the name? Goldberg, I think, was the name of the ragtimes. I forget. It's been so long since I taught mallets and whatnot. But xylophone's fun. You play with the Becker Blues mallets. Those can sound great. But if you play like with the really hard acrylic mallets on xylophone, oh, it's just like it pierces your soul. It hurts. The Pope died early this morning? Oh, well then they hit him extra hard. I'm sorry to hear that. You're proud to have marched there? Well, I'm glad you were able to march there. That's awesome. Yeah, no, that is difficult. Coming back after a time off is no good. Or like when you first like take over like a drum line, that's also no good. One time you dropped your drumstick and it broke. I've broken so many drumsticks, it's ridiculous. This pair has like lasted me forever, and I keep retaping it whenever like the tape starts to go down because they're extra heavy Hardeman hammers. Like when in the comments that you could write to like Steve Weiss, I was like, give me the heaviest pair you got, and they delivered. And this was like over a decade ago. And so I've been like preserving this as my practice chop out sticks forever because I want to keep them. But yeah, I've broken so many sticks. I won't name the brand. Maybe they've gotten better. But when I was marching academy, when I was the center way back in the day, we got a fresh brick of sticks. And so I was like, okay, I got to tape it up. So I spent like one of our like dinner breaks, like taping up the sticks. And then while I was tapping off the drum line to like start off with like some 8/8/16 or whatever, the stick broke on the tap off. It was literally like, and then it just like snapped. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to use this brand with my own personal playing, but it was a double tape pair of sticks and it broke during the tap off. So not the best quality. Where is Minnie? Minnie died a few days ago, unfortunately. So part of the reason why I haven't been doing any streams at all is because I was sick. Like my stomach was just like, ugh, for like almost 3 weeks. But then also because I just like needed time to mourn. So she died a few days ago, unfortunately. So I've been very sad. And because I don't feel like I can bring like good vibes like to the streams and whatnot, like I just kind of took some time for myself and hang out with my wife. And we've looked at so many pictures of our doggos over the years because we used to have 4 and she was the last of the 4 to survive. Who died? My dog. My doggo died. Perfect staff and perfect members. That's good. Good to hear. Yeah, I had... I have mixed feelings about a lot of the drum lines I've been a part of. Like, some of them have been more positive experiences than negative, and then others, I would not wish that style of teaching upon anybody. I learned what not to do as an educator. Turns out, throwing stuff and yelling at students doesn't make the snare line feel any better about themselves. But what do I know? Okay. We got the blood flowing. We stretch and massage. Let's go back to my website, jaredoleary.com/drum. And let's just, again, keep drumming again. One of my favorite shopping sprees. No. We're not doing that 1:30 right now. Rip, yes. Rip to Minnie. She was such a good dog. I have so many good memories of her. But, unfortunately, she is now dead. They only went to 3 shows. Interesting. Wonder why that is. So I was a part of a... Well, I'm going to be very vague with this and not give any details, because for all I know, there's a lawsuit of it. But I was a part of a group where, like, the staff seemed to get along, and then, like, a bunch of people left, and I was like, wait, what happened? And it turned out that the person who was organizing it was not paying people and doing all sorts of, like, really shady stuff on the back end that I was not aware of, because this person, trying so hard to be vague, was intentionally keeping information from people like myself who would have been like, no, that's not cool. So yeah, hopefully they can figure this stuff out, but that's unfortunate. Sometimes there's some back end stuff that goes on that it's just like, oh, well, that's not cool. You got $10 from your Easter egg hunt yesterday? Nice. GG's. Alright, so we're going to start slow. But this is all in 5 patterns, playing like float variations, like float cheeses. The first line was float drags. Now we're doing float 5s. Float being like Tom Float, the guy. Nice! Went for a walk in the park last night, and there's still a bunch of people doing like Easter celebrations and whatnot, and people just like left a bunch of discarded plastic eggs everywhere. Completely empty. It's like, just pick up your trash. Come on. This is a nice park. You can do it. I believe in you. This is a good spree. I like it. Interesting. Edwards, yeah, I wonder if something went down on the back end finance-wise. People probably weren't getting paid. That's unfortunate. But that's just me guessing based off my experiences. But yeah, the person that I was talking about that was doing some shady stuff with the group that I was involved with, I was involved with another group that I took over where they were teaching. Well, I'm trying to leave out details here. I'll leave it at that. So I found out just like a bunch of stuff from the boosters of that organization that like, yeah, we paid for like bricks of sticks and like never got them from this person. I was like, what? What did they do with the money? No, I don't. What's their lore? Whoa! Dance break. Sometimes you just gotta stop playing to dance. It happens. Did his name rhyme with Bike Jack Baxon? So, I've read stuff about that. And yeah, if even half of it's true, yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Co-director was doing the same thing. Ignoring people's health requirements, ignored mental health issues. Yikes. Huh. Oh, that stinks. Yeah, Edwards, that kind of... if the group is about to fold because of stuff like that, that kind of reminds me of what happened with cadets. Like, if you don't know the lore behind that, there's... Yeah. There's a lot. Yeah, those were not just rumors as far as I understand. I'm pretty sure there was, like, a big lawsuit, and then that's what folded the group, which is, like... Cadets have been around for how many decades? They're rough. I did not like their style of playing, but they were good. Need some water. They were like super, super tight. Like even like the way they marched, like their marching was very like their knees were like super locked. So if you like marched for cadets, like ripped to your knees. But yeah, their playing was just like very, very tight. And I studied with Vern Johnson, who was a tenor tech for cadets for a while. And he was the tenor soloist in Blast, in the video recording of it. Phenomenal player. Although people would always make fun of him because he in the recording of Blast, like he hit a bunch of rims and whatnot. So he's not like Bill Bachman, who is like just absolutely allergic to rims. I don't even know if he knows rims exist. And I'm saying that as a compliment to Bill. But Vern was such a good player. He really helped me speed up my hands, but I just could not stand like the technique that they used for cadets. They were militant, but it seemed like the members like that. Yeah. Yeah. When you get militant, you start to pass the line between acceptable and illegal. So I burn it. When I first started teaching, I was much more on the very regimented style. I guess I'll say, to use a slightly different terminology. But I realized that like you can still have extremely high standards and expectations without having to be strict, I guess, or aggressive with the pedagogies that you use, etc. So like there were instructors that I had that literally like threw stuff at the students and would swear at us and like just say all sorts of stuff that I will never repeat on stream. And they were actually came from cadets. Funny we say that. They marched for cadets for a long time ago. And it just demoralized the group, and it made us so they didn't want to practice. So what I eventually realized, like when I first started teaching in 2003 versus when I like stopped teaching whatever year that was, over a decade later, like it was a night and day difference in terms of the approach, but the expectations were still absurdly high. Like it's it doesn't need to come at the cost of like playing good, in my opinion. Can I play Roblox? I can play Roblox. Am I gonna play Roblox? No. Am I gonna play the drums more? Yeah. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that. It just without the Hopkins syndrome. That's funny. Can I play Roblox? Yes. Can you play Roblox? That's cool. Let's try this at 120. Is this gonna sound good? Probably not, but you know, it's been a month. Late. Normally I try and go for 130, but that ain't happening today. You love how a lot of groups are developing into this mindset, extremely high standards without high stress processes. Yes. So I think part of that has to do with the fact that more instructors now are actually learning how to teach. And I know that sounds weird to say, but it's the truth. There are so many people that just like replicated what worked for them and not necessarily think about, well, there's many ways to teach. There's this word called pedagogy, like for starters. And I'm happy to see that. So there's like people like me who back in the day, like were taught by instructors who only marched and never got any degrees in teaching and never taught anything outside of drumline or marching band, and realized that like, hey, being a jerk doesn't work well when you're teaching, you know, like 5-year-olds in kindergarten or even middle schoolers or whatever. Like, and then there's also been some research on how if you are in like a fear-based culture, it ends up making it so that people are less likely to perform well and consistently. Like they'll get like significantly worse results because people aren't going to practice or aren't going to invest the time, energy, etc. They'll just kind of go through the motions just enough to not have something thrown at them or get yelled at. But other than that like, it's just not going to happen for you. So I'm glad to see that people are learning how to finally teach. But there's still a ways to go with it. Some of the best groups nowadays have the most chill instructors. And when you listen to interviews of them, one of the things they talk about is they have such a high caliber level of performer that they're working with that they focus more on the mental side of things rather than like cleaning up stuff, like just trying to get people into a performance mindset and to like not think about like their breakup that they just had, or like for myself, like my dog who just died a few days ago, like to make it so that you can just be present in the moment and be consistent with your rehearsing and performing, etc. And they're able to focus on that. Whereas like if you're working with like a younger group, there's a lot more focus on like, well, here's how you actually hold your sticks, etc. But it's, I don't know, it's nice to see that people are learning how to teach finally. These are the types of sounds that you hear in 3 a.m. That's funny. What is my favorite video game? I don't know. I really wanted to love Assassin's Creed Shadows, but the video for that releases in like 30 minutes, and it was not it. It was not Ghost of Tsushima, I can tell you that much. Let's see. Let me give you an actual answer. Let's go back to the games that we streamed. Not good. This one was fine. Not as good as everyone said. I'd probably rate it an 8. Black Myth Wukong was like surprisingly good. Really well done, kind of Souls-like-ish game. But it's just basically boss to boss to boss to boss, which is a little bit different than Souls. So if you watch the actual highlight reel for that one, where is it? This one is literally every single boss fight, and it's like how many hours? All right. Wow, that's loud. Yeah, 8 hours of boss fights and cutscenes. So like that's absurd. So that one was really cool. Cyberpunk, terrible. That game like just genuinely was no good. Darkwood, really good game. Cyberpunk was so buggy. If you watch the highlight reel, that was just like a small fraction of the like number of bugs I found in this game, like completely game breaking, or like people's heads don't load, etc. Darkwood is really good, procedurally generated horror game. It was cool. Deathloop was interesting, but not as good as the 2 games that they made before it. Oh shoot, what are the names of it? With Corvo something. Corvo. I'm going to play it eventually again. What is it? Dishonored. Yeah, so Dishonored 1 and 2. Those were, in my opinion, better than Deathloop. This one was okay. It was super buggy. Elden Ring, fantastic. This game was really buggy, terrible. This game was interesting. Ghost of Tsushima, really good game. Much better than Assassin's Creed Shadows. Ghost Simulator's goofy. The God of War series, those last couple have been phenomenal. Hatoful Boyfriend. This game is weird. It's a pigeon dating simulator. It is super weird. Let's see. What are some other good ones? Hollow Knight is a great game. Limbo and Inside, those were really interesting games. Nine Souls, that was a fantastic game. Minecraft, I proposed my wife to it through it. I made a mod for the game, so I have a special place in my heart for that game. Portal, which I'll do here in about an hour. Phenomenal. Absolutely love these games. I played them over a decade ago, so I'm looking forward to playing through them again. Stanley Parable, fantastic game. So's Undertale. I Am Bread, yeah, I Am Bread was goofy. Very goofy game. Tried Touch Grids. Touch Grids are weird. They're interesting. It kind of reminds me of what I was going to do for an INE thing, where I was going to demonstrate like how you can play different dynamics without changing your heights, etc. So like, for example, so you can like change the amount of like velocity that you're using, etc. Or like doing reverse dynamics, so as you crescendo, it decrescendos, and vice versa. But I was also gonna like do like a bunch of like ghost note stuff. So you stop your primary note right before you hit, so you get a tap sound. And if you do it with flam drags, you can do some cool stuff. So what I was going to do, this is back when I did traditional, is I was going to do like a bunch of like backsticking ghost notes. I haven't practiced that in forever, but the backsticking, you do the ghost note here, or you play the little tap there. So there's some cool stuff that you can do with like changing it, but if you want grid variations, there's like literally over 1,000 of them here. 419 for triplet, 577 for 16th note. And then there's wacky stuff. There's 36 of them in here, like Hurt to Grid. You're welcome, Tyler. Wrote those out for you. And then a bunch of other stuff. But speaking of a bunch of other stuff, let's, play the things again. I'm really into like float drag variations this morning. Let's do a flam drag. So this exercise has several different variations of it. And again, this one starts as slow as 40 beats a minute and it goes as fast as 200, which, we're definitely not going to do today. Let's start off at a nice, comfortable 110. You love Undertale? Yeah. Undertale is such a good game. Wait, let me read your comment. You taught a quad clinic on Saturday. You would love to go over the touch concepts? Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with like talking about touch and velocity and just like the spacing like in between your palm. So if you're like here, just how much space do you have for it? There's some exercises that have been coming out that are good for that. I'll come back to this in a second. I'm very ADD this morning apparently. But underneath technique, if you go here, but if you go to this one, the fulcrum control, these are great for working on some different spacing. So these ones are all scheduled to release, but stay tuned. If you go to this, actually we'll just go to number 1. Whoop. Go to a random spot. So it's playing an accent, which you need to be able to like open up more, give more space for it to breathe when playing this. And then you're playing different distances between the taps. So some of them are 2 notes, some of them are 3 notes, some of them are 1 note for the taps, etc. But the amount of spacing between this changes. So you have to like really focus on not only like the fulcrum control as it's named, but also like thinking about the spacing between the notes in terms of its space in time, but also the spacing in your hand in terms of how open and how closed should you let the stick resonate and move around while I'm playing through this. So these are some really good exercises that can help out with that. Honestly, just playing through this one, like if you try it, just like, it's weird. I'll speed it up so you can actually hear it a little faster. Okay, so we got this. And then a 4-2-1's that. So the rhythms itself are not like super complicated, but they're so good for working on just that control in the interior notes, in the taps in particular. How can you make a living playing the drums? Define living. They're like I'm laughing because a lot of the people that I know who are trying to make it as like a gigging musician, it's very difficult. You have that like 1 in a million, you happen to be 2 in Sleep Token and you like make it and you're doing fine now. But the grind that took to get there, it's very difficult. So there's this like you when you're playing as a drummer and you're trying to make money either through performing or teaching or recording or whatever, the amount of money that you can make is going to be like far outweighed by like even like waiting tables in terms of the consistency that you can get. Or just getting like a 9 to 5, etc. And over time, you can start to charge more. So like when I started teaching privately, I think I charged like $15 an hour or something like that. This is back in like 2003. And now that I have like a PhD in music education and like all sorts of stuff, like as an educational consultant, my hourly rate is $250 an hour. So like, it's not like I started there. Like now it's like way higher than it was. So what happens is you'll have like a primary gig that is not drumming where you will be making more money. And then over time, it'll start to like outweigh it. But the best way to make money is to practice a bunch and then learn how to teach. That's honestly more consistent income than gigging can be. And it's better hours. So like with gigging, it's often like in the evenings, on like weeknights and weekends, and most of the people will be like, oh, well, you get exposure, so you can sell your album, which like they're not willing to pay you for it. So it's really hard to make money as a gigging musician. A lot of the people that I went to, like in the school of music that I went to, a lot of the performance majors end up after like a year or two going back and getting like a postdoc or a postbac, not a postdoc, a postbac, or even a master's degree in education, when they had like a performance degree, because they realized just how difficult it is to like actually make a consistent income, even with like a degree in performance. Or they'll get like a music therapy degrees, which are phenomenal, which came out of World War II, I think, or one, I forget the history of it. But it's a lot of like very research-based, like how to use music for therapeutic purposes, whether it's like rehabilitation, like being able to like relearn how to have coordination with your hands. So drumming would be a great way to like work on that. Or like I knew somebody who had to learn how to walk again, and so they use music therapy to like learn how to walk, etc. Honest answer is to teach a crap ton of lessons. Yes, I agree with you, Tyler. A lot of the people that I know who are gigging musicians are teaching privately or are like a full-time educator, and then they gig on weeknights, especially in the elementary space. Like when I was doing my student teaching, the half the day you're at a high school, and then the other half of the day you're at either an elementary or a junior high. Depends on where you want to go. And so I was at an elementary school, and the teacher who was there was like, look, I show up at like 8 o'clock. I start teaching at 8:30, and then I'm done at like 2:30. I forget the exact time. And he's like, and I got to go home. And on the weeknights and weekends, he was gigging in the pit orchestras for like Broadway shows. And that was as a low brass player. And that was a phenomenal way for him to have that stable, consistent income with, medical insurance, etc., from working in a school district in a relatively lower demanding job than that is at least tangentially related. Like he's still got to play instruments and stuff like throughout the day to making music. But it's not as like I have to take my work home with me kind of a thing. I'm not explaining this very good, but with like that district that he was teaching in, the lesson plans were handed to him. And so by a district official. So he didn't have to spend time outside of school grading papers because there's music classes that did not require students to turn anything in and no homework. He did not have to write lesson plans. So his prep time was literally just setting up his room for band and then tearing it down for like general music. Otherwise, he'd just sit there and practice like during his prep time because he didn't have to write lesson plans because the district wrote them for him. This was kind of a unique situation. But he was able to just focus on like teaching and make a decent living. You don't make much as an educator, but he was able to supplement that by gigging all the time. And like that combo really worked for him. And so the same thing can apply for like make a living playing the drums. But if you want to make a living just being a performer and you don't know how to teach, good luck with that. Like it's very difficult. If you work your butt off, you can do it. You teach lessons on the side, which has been fun but hard to manage with an 8 to 5 job. Yeah, I hear you. I taught at a high school in the morning. We would start at 6 a.m. and we weren't allowed to play until 7 a.m. So we'd do visual block and stuff. And then I would go and leave the high school to teach a full-time elementary gig. And then I would leave at the end of the day, so at like 3:30 or whatever, I would go to school. I was taking like 2 or 3 classes a night or a week, so at night. And then I was teaching at the high school like at football games on Friday nights. And then Saturdays, we would have band days and stuff like that, or rehearsals in the morning. But then I would teach all weekend whenever I wasn't teaching at the like games and competitions. So like my Sunday was completely booked for 12 hours. So my entire week consisted of either going to school as a student or going to school as a teacher and then teaching privately. And it was great. I really enjoyed what I did, but it was not easy. Like it was difficult getting a workout in. It was difficult like maintaining relationships, etc., because I was just doing too much. But I really enjoyed what I did. Like, it was great. You have to deny all of them? Yeah, but that's good for you to have that understanding that you can't do everything. There's a finance podcast that I listen to. It's called Afford Anything, I think. Paula Pant. She's a really good podcaster. Let me check here. Yeah. So this podcast, Afford Anything, I highly recommend this if anyone's interested in finance, to be able to just like think about like frameworks for how do I think about investments, how do I think about budgeting, etc. But one of the things that she always starts her episodes with is that you can afford anything, but not everything. And like that goes not only monetarily speaking, but also time-wise. So there's a lot of things that I've been asked to do because of the background that I have as an academic, as a performer, as an educator, etc. Like I still get people who are like, hey, would you write an article for this journal? Or, hey, would you write a chapter for my book, or etc.? And like in the past, like I've done that. Like I'm really honored to have been able to do it. Like a lot of the stuff that's like on my CV for publications and whatnot, like this one I was asked to do, this one I was asked to do, this one I was asked to do, same thing for this one and that one, this one. Like a lot of these publications that I've done, this one we submitted, wasn't asked to do that. This one I was asked to do, we submitted this one. So like most of the stuff that I've done have been opportunities that people have asked, like, do you want to do this? At least publication wise. And now I have to say no to a lot of it because it just takes away from what I'm like currently doing. Like I can't teach a music program and a computer science program while also writing like publications in music education and computer science education, while also like presenting, etc. Oh, there's Minnie. She's adorable. I miss her. She would lay by me while I'd practice. It was super cute. Anyways, but yeah, like finding that balance like is crucial. So I did not figure that out until probably 3 years ago, when there was just like a bunch of drama related to work, and I knew a couple of people. One who was like a student and friend of mine who, he's only a few years older than me, but I supervised his dissertation, and he ended up like getting cancer and dying. And like his diagnosis, and then another person, actually, Janice Waldron, the person who asked me to write this particular chapter, she ended up dying from cancer. And like those things happening, with all the work drama that was going on, just made me realize like how finite the life is, and just like how short it is. And it's just like, I can't do everything, and I can't keep getting pulled too thin. And just like really helped me reprioritize things, which is like when I started focusing more on like creating this kind of content, as opposed to the other stuff that I was doing. Hey, sorry, I just saw your comment on Instagram. You hope I had a good Easter? Yeah, I had a mostly good Easter, but I hope that you also had a good one. The only downside was like a dog died a few days ago, but other than that, like, it was a good Easter. It was good. Hello. Anyways, I'm rambling a bunch. Let's play one more thing, and then I'll stop rambling and we'll get ready for some Portal. But JD, good question about how can you make a living playing drums. The short answer is it's very difficult, and it's most likely going to involve some teaching. So learn how to teach. Don't just learn how to play. If you can do that, then you will be able to go much, much further. No, I appreciate it. I took some time to mourn, which is like one of the reasons why I wasn't streaming the last like 3 weeks or whatever. So I'm in a better place now, but obviously still miss her dearly because she was such a sweet little creature. But yeah, my wife and I are still mourning. So no mini cam anymore on the gaming streams, which we'll do here in like 20 minutes. Let's play this exercise. So this is the check. You're funny. Yeah. Some days it's non-stop playing. Other days it's just talking. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. She's been in my life since 15 years ago. So she's the last of 4 dogs that we had. So that was a long time. She survived that battle royale. Why do I play match grip? Because it's way more versatile than traditional grip. As somebody who marched several seasons in high school, college, DCI, was center snare for every drumline I marched, I now never use traditional grip. Literally ever. Yeah, match, like, so as a percussionist, like, I'm not a snare drummer, even though I marched snare. I'm a percussionist, so, like, I've played every percussion instrument, basically, Western style. And, like, traditional grip does not apply to marimba, doesn't apply to vibraphone, doesn't apply to timpani, doesn't apply to bass drum, etc. Like, it just was not useful outside of it. Like, if traditional grip, I heard this from Thomas Lang, but he's talking about, if traditional grip is so good, why don't we play double traditional grip? Which is a really good point. Why do we do it this way? It's because of tradition. I get it. It's on a sling, blah, 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 blah. It looks cool. Great. But physically, mechanically, is it better than match grip? No. It's just not as versatile. I marched academy from 2001 to 2005, and then I got into a car wreck in 2005, so I didn't get to march 06 or 07, so 2007 would have been when I aged out. What speed was that? Did I already click it? I think I did. Yay! You love the chats? Well, I like chatting. I went a long time without anybody showing up to any stream, so I talked to myself. It's nice having people to talk to. Ask questions. Like JD had a good question. Another story time with Jared. So I taught at the high school that I graduated from. So for 5 years I was the caption head after I graduated from there. And we had started with traditional flat because that's where it was when I was on it. And then when I became caption head, we switched over to with the tilt, because with the tilt it just makes so much more sense to play that way, mechanically speaking. And then eventually when Vanguard did match grip in 2005, that actually converted me over to match grip. It's because of Glenn Crosby talking with Murray Gussick about like, well, what's the point of traditional? Let's like switch over to match. And if you actually watch the finals clips of them as a snare line, like they actually were much better than people give them credit for. But anyways, so when I made that switch over, I had that high school switch over to match grip because it just made educationally way more sense. And because we had like percussion ensembles, like the snare line and like tenor line and actually the whole drum line would go into the pit for the ballad, and they'd play 4 mallet solos, like more difficult parts than like some of the full-time like front ensemble people could do. So like we were full on percussion organization when I was the caption head there, but we played match grip because it was more versatile. And more than a decade after I had ended up leaving that school and ended up teaching elsewhere, I went back there because the band director just needed help like tuning the drums and getting some stuff set up. And so I was helping out, and I saw like some of their snare drummers, they were practicing and they were playing match grip. And I was like, hey, can I, like, they didn't know who I was. They're like, hey, can I give you some like tips on your technique? And so we were just kind of chatting because they were like playing really tight, and they're like, yeah, I don't know why we play match grip. Like I think it's because like our instructor doesn't know how to do traditional blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, we want to know actually why you play match grip? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm the reason why that you play match grip, because I was the one who switched it over when I was a caption head. And they're like, oh, well, do you know how to play traditional? I was like, yeah, I was a center snare for Academy. And they're like, what? So it like completely changed their perspective on it, because they thought it was like they weren't as good as the other snare lines that played traditional. And then when they got a reframing that a snare drummer for the local drum corps like was the one who chose to do that, it just completely reframed it for them. And they're like, oh, I guess match grip's not that bad. And they're like, yeah, I know. That's why I switched it over. You've seen people say an answer so they can relax? What? That is so random. Yeah, I agree with you. Anyone who says that like traditional grip is better, like it's always, well, because it looks cool. Okay? Does it looking cool far outweigh the educational benefits for you? Apparently. For me, no, not so much. Like, I get learning traditional can help prepare you for marching in a very specific activity. But if you want to play anything outside of that very specific activity, it's not it. It's not the way to do it. Yes, I agree with you. You have the same mechanics on both the hands. It's so much easier to teach. It's so much easier to then play outside of that. Like, just overall, it's just so much better. Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, I want to make sure that when I do these streams that I bring like a consistent, like just trying to have fun, like a good vibe. And not that like I can't show other emotions like grief and whatnot. I think that's very important to do as well. Thank you for the sub on YouTube. I appreciate you. But I was just I didn't know if I could get through the stream without breaking down and like crying, because like I was just so sad, because like this is a very fresh wound. Even though she was like about 17-year-old dog, like it's clearly her time, but it was sad. So yeah, I just didn't want to be like a bummer on the streams and whatnot. But I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoy the vibe. Yeah, trying to be consistent with that vibe. Marching band has a visual aspect. Yeah, WGI has even more of a visual aspect, and it's one of the reasons why I don't like WGI as much as I like DCI. They focus on the visuals at the cost of playing clean. And I know that's my old curmudgeonly, like, back in my day, like, I personally prefer to focus on playing clean rather than all the visual stuff. But honestly, tenor lines often have more visuals than snare. Like the nunchucks, the baby. Ew. Play the wrong part. Hey, I appreciate it, Tyler. You're glad you found these streams? I'm glad I stream. I like doing it. Even though I'm very much so an introvert, it has helped me to break out of that shell a bit more. It has also helped me to chill out with my practicing and be okay sharing mistakes. Like all, 300 and some odd streams are still live, and there's a lot of mistakes. Especially on kit. If you're playing up here, then it limits the range of motion. Then if you're playing down here, ideally I'd actually play with a slight tilt. Am I gaming today? Yeah, I'm gonna actually be playing Portal 1 here in a little bit. But if you, so if you look at Vanguard 2005, one of the things that they like experimented with was like how much forward tilt for the snare drums. So when I play concert snare, I have a tilt here, but it allows you to play with even more power, more relaxed, etc. It's the same thing when you're playing on tenors. You don't want to have your tenors up high like they used to do like back in the 70s and 80s. That's just like going to end up like not working out for you. So for my technique, it's all about playing as relaxed as possible with playing nice volume out of the drums. So I play it this way. Back when I marched snare, it was all about keeping the forearm parallel to the drum and to the ground. And then the right arm would be sticking out here. So it was obviously higher. And then when we had the tilt, then I was able to relax the arm a little bit more. And then switch over and over to match grip, able to relax it even more, and just let the hands hang down here. As long as it's not hitting your knees when you're drumming, then you're good. My mic is glitching. Cool. Good. Slipped out of my hand. Alright, let's do 170, and then I'll call it here. It's working now? Oh, darn. I prefer it when my mic glitches. It sounds better. Your stream was down for a second? Okay. I probably just had like an internet connection issue. Nope. Nope. Again. I think for today, that's probably the breaking point. After having not drummed in a month. What's my opinion on practicing while sitting? It's better than not practicing, but it's not ideal. So it can cause some bad habits. But back when I was like on the tour bus, it's a little bit easier when I was playing traditional. It's just because it's up higher as opposed to like this. So if I was playing match grip, it would have been more difficult. But would practice all the time while sitting because you're on a tour bus. That's all you could do. Like, you're not going to be standing. It's just not safe, etc. But ideally, if you can get one of these adjustable stands. So this is a keyboard stand right here. And I've got a couple of pads on it to make it a little bit better of a height, but it's adjustable. So it's able to get higher, lower, etc. So if I wanted to like play this with traditional, I could raise it up even more. So get a stand like that, and that can help out with being able to play. Or you can do like a snare stand. Well, I've got one over there with my like real feel pad on it, and I'll use that one like if I'm just like out in the living room or something, like watching a movie. I'll just drum on that. I have no idea what you're asking. I don't even know if that's English. And it's inconsistent the way you're spelling it every single time. So if you're trolling, I'm happy to ban you, but I don't know what you're asking. Sorry. Practicing while skipping is like it's like skipping leg day. Yeah. So hello. Yeah. I would much rather you practice while sitting than not practice, but it can reinforce some bad habits with like elbow placements in particular. So if, for example, you're playing match grip and the way that you're sitting and like the thickness of your pad, etc., it makes it so that you play like this, and it changes the angle at which you are holding your wrist out as like more of like a German approach as opposed to like an American approach or like a French approach. Like, then that can create some technique issues if you're having to play like this. It can also create some issues with, depending on how you're sitting, marking time, because you don't want to like move your legs to like mark time and like actually feel the pulse, etc. Then because like while you're marking time, it's going to make your pad just like constantly move like this. So then you're not reinforcing being able to stay in time. Like it can create issues, but if you like are able to think about and avoid those, then yeah, it's not so bad. You can only really do it for modern marching snare. I agree, but it's better than not practicing. I still stand by that till the day I die. Like, as long as that's not the majority of your practicing. So, for example, when I was on tour, we would have all days, and then in the nights, we would like travel from one show to another. And like during that time on the bus, it might be like 10% of our practice time was like actually on a pad, and that was better than nothing. But again, with it on traditional grip is a little bit easier to not have it mess with my technique as if when I'm practicing on here, but in transition, it's okay. Oh, you have a bad keyboard? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I have a good keyboard. Anyways, I rambled a bunch today. My throat's actually very dry right now. All these play-alongs, like you can practice them going one click at a time, starting slow, like 40 beats a minute, all the way up to 200. Even though we didn't get super fast today, you can go whatever tempo you want. So if you want to go slower, cool. If you want to go faster, cool. But if you go back to the home tab on my YouTube, this is where you can actually find all of the play-alongs in here. There's over 2,000 of them. So when you click on the header here, it expands, and it shows you the like over a dozen hours of drumming tips, like when I've answered questions in the chats. All the technique exercises, there's over 350 of those, chop stuff, etc. So if you scroll through here, you're like, wow, that's a ton of content. You're right. It's not organized as neatly as I'd like because YouTube doesn't really allow me to do that. So if you go to the link that's at the top of each one of these descriptions in the video for like a play along or a drumming tip or whatever, the very first link takes you to here. Going slow. We've got 62 chop exercises organized. I can't speak. Over 1,000 grid variations on here. Focus on rudiment on one. We've got over 150 timing exercises, a bunch of charts and whatnot. We've got over 460 marching bass stuff, several different cadences. We've got over 360 technique exercises organized into different types of playlists. Like if you want to work on endurance and speed, then check that one out. If you want to work on your 3s and 4 strokes, check that one out, etc. And then we've got all of the drumming tips. Here's the pad that I'm using, the sticks I'm using. If you go to the books and gear, I recommend some lessons, etc., etc. All of these are free. If the videos say members first, that just means it's scheduled to release. There's just under 500 of those that are scheduled to release over the next year and a half-ish. So stay tuned for plenty more content. Do I ever practice with songs on drums or mainly just charts? I do practice with songs, and one of the things that I would do instead of using a metronome is I'd actually use the headphones that I use, which apparently aren't on the drums right now. And this is like for teaching drumline. I had a mixer that was set up to a bunch of different headphones that we would use instead of a metronome. We just like put on school appropriate music that I knew what the BPM was, and then we just like practice like working on like fundamentals just for like 3 minutes straight, and then okay, now we're gonna do it on the left hand 3 minutes straight on another song, then we'll do it as double stops 3 minutes straight, etc. So it makes it so that the tedious side of needing to do that grind, making it so that you're just like working on the same fundamental skill over and over, is less boring by turning on music as opposed to a metronome. So if you can do that for your own practicing, cool. I highly recommend it. You need to practice your double whole note grid at 40. You joke. Here, let me see here. Okay, so if I go, I'll show you the back end of this. So there is a variation of Susie at 1 BPM that is going to come out on April 1st of next year. But this play along, it's actually at 1 BPM. It's going to take a while for the next tap. I believe it's 15 seconds until it gets into the next one. You can do it. Oh, yeah. That's my favorite note. So stay tuned for that for April 1st. I'm giving you a little preview here. This one's not even like a members first kind of thing. It's just straight up private until the first when it drops. Do I have any tips for someone who wants to move to snare from front ensemble? Yeah. Actually a lot. So, you need to record a video of this. Okay, so to move to snare from front ensemble, which is actually what I did. I was the pit section leader until I then went and marched snare in high school. But a lot of people, what they end up focusing on is like the chop stuff. Like, oh, I need to learn this snare break from Blue Devils 2016 in order to make my high school drumline snare. No, don't do that. Now that I've scolded people who do that, ignore all these chop exercises. This is your dessert. You might spend maybe 10% of your time working on this. And that's just for fun. Cool, great. But there's a reason why there's only 62 of these, and there are way more grid variations and way more technique exercises. Let's ignore grid for a moment. What I highly recommend you doing, and why there's over 360 of these technique exercises, is because you need to spend the majority of your time, like 50, maybe even 60% of your time, just working on technique exercises. So, if you want to work on your accent taps, check out the accent tap playlist in here. Go slow. The more space there is between each one of the notes when you're practicing, the more you have to be able to rely on staying in time, to be able to play in time. It's harder to play slow and relaxed than it is to play fast. If you practice slow and controlled and start at like 40 beats a minute on this and just let it go one click at a time and get slowly better on this, then you will make significantly more gains than if you sit there and rep something at 160. I promise you, that's the secret to getting good on drums. And I learned this approach from Jeff Queen, who is a 4-time world champion snare drummer. So he won 2 PASIC snare drum solo competitions and 2 DCI INE snare drum solo competitions. And then he's also the snare soloist from Blast, and I got a couple lessons from him. And what he recommended that I was doing was to take a rudiment and just sit there and practice it very slow and slowly start to speed up every single exercise. So a lot of these exercises in here are going to help you be able to do that. So for example, if you want to work on some of your rudiments, hello on YouTube. If you go to the rudiment builders, these exercises are fundamental for like working on your paradiddles. This is a variation of an exercise I learned from Vern Johnson, who is the tenor soloist in Blast. And I took many lessons from him over the course of several months. And so like some of these exercises was inspired by the things that he taught me. But then there's variations like this, like to work on your flam accents or your cheeses. And these exercises, isolate out one hand at a time, go to both hands, and then back to one hand. So check this one out. It's a really good one to check it out. But go through these slow. So when I'm actually doing a technique stream and practicing, I literally start at 40. And I've been drumming since 1998, but I still start at 40. And I work on this while going through it. So when I'm practicing this stuff, I'm going slow, controlled, staying nice and relaxed. And I'm focusing on these technique exercises the majority of my time. So again, the website has everything organized under the technique section right here into all these different playlists. But in addition to playing the technique exercises, about 30 to 40% of your time, you should spend time working on grid variations. There's a reason why there's over 1,000 of them. You don't need to play the wacky stuff like every 5 notes is a float chut cheese off the left while doing a handstand. That's a fun variation, but do that in like a year or two from now after you've made the snare line. Until then, just focus on rudiment on 1 for diddle, flam, cheeses, drags, and flam 5s. All the other ones you can ignore. If you do diddle, flam, cheeses, flam, drags, flam 5s as triplets and 16th notes, then that will really help you to be able to play those rudiments with each permutation of this. So if you focus on cheese on 1, what it's doing in this particular exercise is taking an accent pattern and putting it on 1. And then it permutates it, which means it shifts it over 1 partial. So the next measure is it does it on 2, the second partial. And then it does it on the 3rd partial on the 3rd measure. And so you do 4 of each of those. So for example, cheese, that's with the accent on 1. That's with it on 2, and then that's with it on 3. So that's the first line right there. Then it just does the exact same thing, but only 2 counts. So 2 counts on the 1st partial, 2 counts on the 2nd partial, 2 counts on the 3rd partial. And then finally, it also does 1 count, where it's on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd partial, and it does that a total of 4 times. If you can focus on those technique exercises and just grid variations for these rudiments, diddle, flam, cheese, drags, 5s, that will help you to be able to make snare. But that was a very quick introduction into what I'd recommend. I've got literally over a dozen more hours of drumming tips on here. Like if you want to like learn how to hold traditional grip, this is what I recommend for traditional grip. I spent a lot of time thinking through what to teach in that particular scripted video. But when I'm answering questions from the various chats that I've got up, I often edit those down and put them into this playlist, and it's got over a dozen hours of tips on here. Like there's one where I was actually streaming a video game, and it was asking about audition advice. So I got that one. And it's got tips for like how to prepare for auditions. But there's a ton of different advice in here in these drumming tips, so I highly recommend checking those out. Each one of these has a variety of different topics. So for example, this one starts off talking about how to play relaxed accent taps. But if you look in the description here, it then talks about molar on drumline versus on drum kit. It also talks about 3 exercises to improve your flam drags, and then something to focus on when you're doing inverts and upstrokes, and then how to improve tap sound quality. Excuse me. So there's a variety of different topics that are in each one of these when you're working on that. You just started to play Blue Devils 2014. That's hilarious. Yeah, as somebody who did that when I was marching snare, like focused on the chop stuff, I got cut until I started focusing on the technique stuff. So like as somebody who like my first year marching snare, I auditioned for Blue Devils snare line because I wanted to see what it was like so I could eventually work my way toward that. And so I was like learning all of like Blue Devils 99 spree and just like a bunch of like wacky, like weird stuff. But the thing that they wanted was for me to be able to play the technique exercises that they had. And so all of these are what I wish I had focused on and what I wish I had to be able to practice listening in on when I was trying to prepare for auditions. So I highly recommend working on these. Hey, Tyler, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to create the content I wish that I had when I was marching. I would have been such a better performer if I had, no offense to my instructors, but if I had better instructors earlier. Like the first technique that I learned for drumline, our drumline instructor taught us to play flat, and that we should be able to balance a penny on top of our palm, and while playing accent taps, it should not fall off of your hand. So they wanted us to literally finger stroke all the accents and all the taps without a penny falling off your hand. So guess who practiced with a penny on their hand, so that way I would not have it fall off. I took everything literally and practiced everything to the nth degree and got early signs of like tendonitis, carpal tunnel. I popped a vein right here. It turned all purple, all sorts of horrible things for technique. And then I eventually like got many lessons with like Glenn Crosby, who's taught all sorts of world-class groups over the years. And then lessons with like Vern Johnson, with Jeff Queen, with concert percussion and professors, etc. Like so many good people. And then I like realized, wow, I'm playing super tight. And it's because of how I was taught. So yeah, trying to create the stuff that I wish that I had been taught earlier. Should you practice traditional or match? School uses match. We have, I would practice match. I highly recommend match. Even though like I marched traditional, match grip is the way to go. It allows you to play so many more instruments than traditional. But if you want tips on traditional, I do have a video on that. It is everything that I'd recommend for traditional grip in terms of like what angle should you place it at, how high or low should it be, or like what should you do with your wrist angle, etc. So there's a lot of things to consider with this video. And I think in the like 2.5 minute long video, it gives you more information than I've seen like 20-minute instructional videos. And that's no disrespect to other people. It's that dense. Like I literally spent a month just crafting the script to make sure that it was very actionable, good information, in my opinion. But yeah, I agree with Tyler. Match grip is the way to go. Every drumline that I've taught that has started on traditional, I eventually switched them over to match grip because it's a better technique, especially for high school. But I'm rambling a bunch. And I was supposed to start the Portal stream a few minutes ago. But, you know, it's been a while, so we're back. I will tear this down and get ready for some portaling here. But yeah, all of the exercises are organized neater on my website, and this is linked at the top of every play along and every single one of the drumming tips videos. It takes you to here. So ignore the members first stuff. Thank you for people who have signed up for membership. I do appreciate it, but you don't need to sign up for it. All of them are scheduled to release for free. No paywalls, no courses. I don't sell private lessons anymore, etc. So I'm not trying to sell you stuff, just trying to give you this content for free. If you enjoy it, share it with somebody else. But I'm going to call it here and get ready for some gaming. So if you want to stick around for that, you can check that out here in probably 15 or 20 minutes. I just got to get everything set up. But thank you, and have a good rest of my day. I will. I appreciate it, Tyler. Sincerely. Thank you. But I'm good. I've taken some time to mourn. We'll continue to mourn because, you know, grief is complicated and it's long lasting. But anyways, I'm out. So goodbye.